Have you ever met one of them? They are not always the loudest person in the room, nor the most charismatic. In fact, they are often the quietest, the most unassuming. Yet, there is something about them, a quality of being that is as undeniable as it is difficult to name. It is a kind of light, a subtle, luminous field that seems to emanate from their very presence, a stillness that commands the space around them more powerfully than any shout. When you are with them, the frantic, chattering noise of your own mind, the endless loops of anxiety, judgment, and self-criticism seems to quiet down. The armor you wear around your heart, the heavy, invisible breastplate you didn't even know you were carrying, begins to feel heavy and unnecessary, and you feel the strange, forgotten sensation of your own soul taking a deeper breath. In their presence, you feel, perhaps for the first time in your life, the profound and healing sensation of being utterly and completely seen. This is not the intrusive gaze of the analyst, dissecting your motives, nor the sentimental pity of the sympathizer, looking down upon your pain from a safe distance. It is a form of perception so deep, so resonant, that it seems to bypass your conscious mind entirely and speak directly to the silent, hidden chambers of your soul. They see not just the mask you present to the world, the polished and carefully curated persona, but the complex, wounded, paradoxical, and beautiful being that lies beneath it. To be in their presence is to feel a sense of homecoming to yourself, a permission to be fully and unapologetically human. These are the true empaths, and the rare spiritual glow they possess is not a personality trait, nor is it a sentimental gift for feeling things deeply. From the profound, soul-drenched perspective of Carl Jung, it is something far more significant. It is the external sign of a psyche that has achieved a rare and heroic level of integration. It is the light that is emitted when the conscious mind has had the immense courage to descend into the underworld of the unconscious and form a sacred union with the whole of life. Our culture has profoundly misunderstood, trivialized, and pathologized the nature of empathy. It has been reduced to a soft skill, a form of emotional niceness, a sentimental bleeding for the suffering of others. The internet is filled with self-proclaimed empaths who describe their condition as a curse, a state of being a psychic sponge, constantly overwhelmed by the emotions of others, a raw, exposed nerve in a brutal world. But this is not true empathy. From a Jungian standpoint, this is a state of porous, undefined psychic boundaries. It is a sign of psychological immaturity, of an ego that is not yet strong enough to differentiate itself from its environment. This condition is not a sign of spiritual advancement, but of a soul in distress. The true empath is not a sponge. They are a mirror that has been so painstakingly polished by the abrasive, often agonizing work of self-realization that it can reflect the soul of another without distortion, without judgment, and without being stained or broken by the reflection. This is not a gift you are born with. It is a crown you earn, and the price of that crown is the complete and utter surrender of your own ego, the willingness to walk through the purifying fires of your own darkness, and the courage to become a vessel for something far greater than your own personal story. The glow they possess is not the fragile light of a candle, easily snuffed out by the winds of the world. It is the steady, self-luminous glow of a star, drawing its energy from the immense dark furnace of a fully integrated psyche, the prerequisite of empathy, the agony of the dissolved persona. The journey to becoming a true empath begins not with an opening, but with a shattering. It begins with the dissolution of the persona. The persona is the mask of the ego, the collection of roles, beliefs, and behaviors you have assembled to be someone in the world. It is your job title, your political affiliation, your family role, your carefully cultivated image. It is the ego's ambassador to the world, and for the vast majority of people, it is the sum total of who they believe themselves to be. They are not a being, they are a biography. This persona acts as a thick, opaque wall. The ordinary person experiences the world not directly, but through the narrow, defensive slits of this fortress. Their interactions with others are not meetings of souls, but collisions of masks, transactions between two carefully managed press secretaries. They are not listening to you. They are listening for how your words affirm or threaten their own constructed identity. Their entire psychic energy is consumed with the maintenance and defense of this fragile facade. This is why most people are fundamentally incapable of genuine empathy. They cannot see you because they are blinded by the thick, rigid structure of their own self. To truly see another person's reality would require them to suspend their own, and for the ego, which is terrified of its own non-existence, this suspension feels like annihilation. Their every perception is instantly filtered through a self-referential grid. What does this mean for me? How does this make me look? Does this person agree with me? Are they on my team? Their world is a hall of mirrors where they see only distorted reflections of themselves. They may offer sympathy, which is a feeling for you from a safe distance, but they cannot offer empathy, which is the terrifying and sacred act of feeling with you in a shared space of being. The true empath, however, has undergone a radical and often agonizing process. Through some catalyst, be it profound suffering, a spiritual crisis, or a deliberate path of inner work, the rigid fortress of their persona has been shattered. They have been forced to let go of the comforting certainty of who they are. They have been plunged into what the mystics call the kenosis, the self-emptying. They have endured the terrifying void of non-identity, the feeling of being a no-self, a disembodied awareness floating in a sea of pure potential. This is not a pleasant experience. It is a dark night of the soul, a period where all the familiar signposts of their reality are removed, leaving them utterly lost in the wilderness of their own psyche. It is the crucifixion of the ego. It is precisely in this state of being lost that the capacity for true empathy is born. Having lost the rigid container of their own identity, their consciousness becomes porous, open, and receptive in a new way. They are no longer trapped behind the fortress walls of their own ego. They can now step outside of their own perspective and, for the first time, truly inhabit the perspective of another. They are not feeling for the other person from a safe distance. They are, in a very real sense, feeling with them in a shared field of consciousness. They are no longer a noun, a fixed and defined self. They have become a verb, a process of pure receptive awareness. The spiritual glow they possess is the light of a consciousness that is no longer trapped within the claustrophobic confines of a single, isolated ego. It is the light of a self that has become a bridge, a connecting channel to the universal human experience. The crucible of the shadow, the only path to unconditional positive regard. To have a shattered persona is only the first step. A person in this state can be open, but they can also be dangerously ungrounded, uncontained, and unstable. This is the state of the psychic sponge, the overwhelmed and chaotic empath. The second and far more arduous stage of the journey is the descent into the shadow. The shadow, in Jungian terms, is the cellar of the psyche, the place where we have exiled every part of ourselves that we have deemed unacceptable, shameful, or evil. It is our rage, our envy, our greed, our lust, our profound weakness, our capacity for cruelty. It is the monster in our own personal labyrinth. The ordinary person lives in a state of violent opposition to their own shadow. They spend their lives running from it, denying its existence, and because it cannot be destroyed, they project it onto the world. They see the evil they cannot face in themselves in the faces of others, the other political party, the other country, the other race, the rival at work. This is the source of all judgment, all prejudice, and all us versus them thinking. The person who has not done their shadow work cannot be a true empath, because they will always be unconsciously using you as a screen upon which to project their own disowned darkness. If you express anger and they have disowned their own anger, they will not see your pain. They will see a monster, and they will recoil in fear or self-righteous judgment. If you reveal your shame and they cannot bear their own, they will not meet you with compassion. They will meet you with pity or revulsion, both of which are forms of subtle violence. They cannot accept your whole self because they have not accepted their own. The true empath has walked a different, far more courageous path. They have undertaken the heroic journey of descending into their own personal underworld. They have had the immense courage to sit in the dark with their own monsters, to look their own evil in the eye, and to do so not with judgment, but with a radical, compassionate curiosity. They have withdrawn their projections from the world and taken responsibility for the full spectrum of their own humanity. They have discovered their own inner murderer, their own inner thief, their own inner coward, their own inner tyrant. And in doing so, they have undergone a profound alchemical transformation. The lead of their own darkness, when met with the light of their own consciousness, begins to turn into gold. By integrating their own darkness, they have earned the right to be in the presence of yours without flinching. This is the secret to their unshakable, non-judgmental presence, what the psychologist Carl Rogers called unconditional positive regard. When you confess your darkest secret to a true empath, they do not judge you, because they have already found that same secret, in some form, within themselves. When you show them your rage, they are not afraid, because they have already befriended their own. When you reveal your deepest shame, they do not pity you. They recognize a shared and sacred human wound. They can hold the space for the full, terrifying, paradoxical truth of who you are, because they have already held that same space for themselves. Their compassion is not a sentimental feeling. It is a form of profound, hard-won knowledge. It is the wisdom that comes from knowing in their own bones, in their own veins, that they are no different from you, that nothing human is alien to them. The spiritual glow they radiate is the light of a consciousness that has made peace with its own darkness, and can therefore be at peace with yours. It is the light of a truly whole and undivided soul, a soul that has healed its own inner war. The language of the soul, the gift of archetypal perception. Having dissolved the persona and integrated the shadow, the empath develops a new and extraordinary mode of perception. The ordinary person sees the world through the literal, concrete and biographical lens of the ego. They see people as their roles, their personalities, their problems, their histories. The true empath learns to see through the symbolic, archetypal lens of the self. Jung believed that the deepest structures of the psyche are the archetypes, primordial, universal patterns and images that are the common inheritance of all humanity. These are the psychic DNA of our species. There is the archetype of the hero, the orphan, the sage, the trickster, the wounded child, the great mother, the tyrant king. These are not intellectual concepts. They are living, energetic forces, numinous presences that shape our lives from the vast, timeless world of the collective unconscious. The true empath, because they have journeyed so deeply into their own psyche, has encountered these archetypes within themselves. They have felt the raw courage of their inner hero as they face their own dragons. They have known the profound desolation of their inner orphan as they navigated the loss of their old identity. They have heard the quiet wisdom of their inner sage emerging from the silence of their own integration. They have learned to recognize these timeless, mythical characters on the stage of their own soul, and because of this, they can recognize them on the stage of yours. When you are speaking to a true empath, they are not just listening to the story of your life. They are listening to the myth you are living. They hear the archetypal music playing beneath the lyrics of your personal story. They see that your problem at work is not just a conflict with your boss. It is the archetypal struggle of the hero against the tyrant, the timeless battle for sovereignty and justice. They see that your relationship issues are not just a series of bad dates. It is the archetypal quest of the orphan for the unconditional love and belonging of the great mother. They see that your period of confusion and despair is not a sign of failure, but the sacred archetypal phase of the dark night of the soul, the necessary descent before the rebirth. To be seen in this way is an experience of profound validation and liberation. It lifts your personal suffering out of the realm of the pathological, the small, the merely personal, and into the realm of the sacred, the universal, the meaningful. You realize that your struggle is not a sign of your brokenness, but a sign of your participation in the great timeless drama of the human soul. The empath does not offer you cheap advice or easy solutions, for that would be a disrespect to the sacredness of your journey. They offer you something far more precious, a mirror that reflects the heroic, mythical dimension of your own life. Their spiritual glow is the light of a consciousness that can perceive the divine archetypal gold hidden within the lead of your everyday struggles. It is this perception that heals, that empowers, and that reconnects you to the profound meaning of your own path. The nature of the glow, anima and animus in sacred union. What then is the ultimate source of this spiritual light? From the deepest alchemical strata of Jungian thought, the radiance of the true empath is the external sign of a profound and sacred inner event, the hieros gamos, or the sacred marriage of the masculine and feminine principles within the psyche. Jung posited that every individual psyche contains a contrasexual other, an inner soul image that represents the repressed, unconscious aspects of their wholeness. In a man, this is the anima, the inner feminine, the archetype of life, relatedness, feeling, and soul. In a woman, this is the animus, the inner masculine, the archetype of spirit, discernment, logic, and meaning. In the unintegrated person, these inner figures remain unconscious, undeveloped, and are constantly projected onto the people in our external lives, wreaking havoc on our relationships. A man projects his unlived feeling, connection, and soulful qualities, his anima, onto the women in his life, expecting them to carry his soul for him. A woman projects her unlived power, logic, and assertive spirit, her animus, onto the men in her life, expecting them to carry her authority and meaning for her. This is the source of all codependent, dysfunctional, you complete me relationships. The journey of individuation, the sacred path of the empath, is the process of withdrawing these projections and consciously developing a mature, loving, and respectful relationship with this inner other. The man must learn to cultivate his own anima, his capacity for feeling, for relatedness, for patient, receptive wisdom, for a connection to the living earth of his own soul. The woman must learn to cultivate her own animus, her capacity for clear, discerning thought, for courageous action, for intellectual and spiritual authority, for a connection to the vast, meaningful sky of her own spirit. This is not a matter of gender identity in the social sense. It is a matter of profound psychic wholeness. The true empath is the person who has achieved this inner union. They are a man who is in a conscious, loving relationship with his own soul. They are a woman who is in a conscious, respectful partnership with her own spirit. They are no longer a half person, a psychic amputee unconsciously seeking their completion in another. They have become a whole, androgynous, self-contained psychic entity, a living embodiment of the divine syzygy. This is the alchemical source of their power and their light. Because the empathic man has embraced his own inner feminine, he can meet a woman in her depth without being unconsciously swamped by her, and he can offer a profound, non-threatening space for another man to explore his own buried soul. Because the empathic woman has embraced her own inner masculine, she can meet a man in his power without being intimidated or projecting her authority onto him, and she can offer a clear, discerning wisdom to another woman lost in emotional chaos. Their empathy is not just a feeling, it is a function of their wholeness. They can contain the paradoxes of life, the light and the dark, the masculine and the feminine, the thinking and the feeling, the being and the doing, within their own being, and can therefore hold a safe alchemical space for others to do the same. The spiritual glow that radiates from them is the light of this inner sacred marriage. It is the light of a consciousness that has healed the primary wound of separation within itself, and can therefore act as a healing agent for the separation in the world. It is the quiet, steady, and luminous radiance of a soul that has finally, after a long and arduous journey through the fires of its own becoming, become one with itself. This is the true nature of the empathic gift, a gift that is not given but forged. It is not the fragile hypersensitivity that our culture mistakes for empathy. It is an indestructible inner peace, a profound non-judgment, a mythic perception, and a state of psychic wholeness that has been earned through the most difficult work a human being can undertake. It is the work of sacrificing the ego's small provincial kingdom for the sake of the soul's infinite and universal one. The people who possess this glow are the quiet lighthouses of our world. They are not disappearing, they are simply standing still in their own integrated truth, and their silent, unwavering light is a beacon for all of us who are still lost at sea. Still battling the storms of our own unlived lives, still searching for the way back home to ourselves.